Graham.
Yeah, a couple of withdrawals from this event. Katie O'Brien was entered. Laritsen from Denmark was entered. This is Ip Ka-yi from Hong Kong, China. She's rowing here in the PR2 mixed double, which is an Olympic class event, and she rows in that with Lao Tzu Sun. And she's experienced in both categories. PR2 women's singles as well as the double. Well, there's the Ukrainian sculler Anna Asinova. She obviously can't get ahead of Svetlana Bohuslavska, who's in the PR2 double scull with Yaroslav Kuda, but she did beat Bohuslavska at the regata in Gavirate last weekend, the other end of this lake, so the 25-year-old might have a chance of getting back into this boat. Familiar face there of Josiane Lima. So familiar because we saw it in this event win the B final of the World Championship. PR2 mixed double sculls. She's a Tokyo and a Rio Olympian.
Yeah, you know, I took a look. She has a fascinating Wikipedia page, so certainly worth having a look. And she said she's competed at every Paralympic game that has featured rowing, and she won Brazil's first Olympic rowing medal, which is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, and of course Brazil here with a really big squad, and it's interesting looking at Ip Ka-yi. She's kind of got a grey covering over her lower body, which I guess is slightly unusual. I don't know whether that's to do with wind resistance or it's to do with just making sure that she's really tight and comfortable in the boat. Good start by Asinova. As I say, Asinova has won on this lake, albeit at the other end in the last week. She came down the track in around about 10 minutes. Give you an idea of how long this race is going to take.
A good start for the Brazilian, Josiane Lima. Loads of experience, as we mentioned, but in really close touch with the Ukrainian Asinova in the really early stages of the race. So coming out of the blocks, you see her just look over her shoulder to get a sense of exactly where the field lies.
Yeah, it was a little shipwreck from Asinova, the Ukrainian sculler there. You could see the water is quite difficult. I did think with these women they probably wouldn't be too much of an issue, but I think Asinova has felt that already. She's kind of at the top of your picture. Diaz de Lima is just in the foreground, and that little shipwreck has cost Asinova a share of the lead in this event. And there is the Ukrainian. He's got to be feeling good coming into this event, but you can see the wobbles, can't you?
Yeah, you can see the wobbles a little bit, and still kind of setting her pace against the Brazilian, making sure she's in touch. A bit of a gap between them now. Asinova, we saw, of course, at the last World Championships where she came home with a bronze medal.
And I think because there were originally more entries in this, and then there's been withdrawals, World Rowing are going to present medals to all three scullers at the end of this. So normally with 3 athletes you just have 2 medals, but not in this case. So already it does look as if the Brazilian has done the work which enabled us to get out and dominate this race. She's got a relatively high rate of striking. She seems to be making the best of these tricky conditions, and she's rating around about 32 strokes a minute.
You know, you mentioned the Paralympic Games. She says, perhaps not surprisingly, that her favorite Paralympic game experience was at home in Rio back in 2016. She mentions too conquering the pandemic in Tokyo 2020, and that the 2008 games were one of the happiest moments of her life. So, as you said, Martin, we've a name that we recognize and has been on the stage for quite some time.
We see Asanova, just she hasn't got the fingers or the thumbs. Maybe she's got the thumb over the end of one blade, the left blade, but not quite the right blade. I can't quite make out. But a bit like Paula Donovan there, you can see the water, can't you, Colleen? It is really quite swelly, and I guess, you know, that's an extra challenge that these athletes are going to have to contend with, to do mainly, I guess, with extra wind conditions. You see the tiny little white caps on the blade there. So here's the race leader, Josiane Lima from Brazil. We're into the second quarter. World's best time in this, set by Katie O'Brien, who came down to qualify for the final in the PR2 mixed double scull this afternoon. I think it was this morning actually. So you're looking at the waves, and it is challenging in these conditions. And I guess if you have a lead like that, Colleen, you know, the conditions are tricky. It's going to be difficult for Asanova to kind of make headway on that lead.
Yeah, if you've gotten out and been able to really build that at this point in the race and in these conditions, and in the small boats, it can be quite challenging. I think, you know, it's interesting in Lago di Varese that the wind conditions can change quite quickly, and not only may they deteriorate, they've actually gotten better in some instances. Where early this morning, a little wobbly, they got better. You know, so we may well see them change, but yes, as you can see here, you know, for now, a bit of a tailwind pushing them along.
Well, I think there's also, to make it more uncomfortable, there's an element of crosswind. So coming from the left-hand side of the rowers, there we see a shot of the leading Brazilian. So it's coming from the left-hand shoulder of the rowers, looking at the flags at the finish, and there's more of a cross element than a tail element, actually, to these conditions. So if you imagine across that open expanse of water, the wind blowing, and it's causing this cross swell, which the scullers are finding difficult to cope with. But I guess Josiane Lima will be used to difficult conditions on the Lago in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
So nothing unusual for the Brazilian sculler.
She's opened up quite a margin as they move through the third quarter now. They'll be looking for that 500 to go mark. We see the Ukrainian Asanova just look over her left shoulder to perhaps see exactly where that is.
There's a good few strokes from her there. We're looking at she's got the boat fairly level. I don't know whether the water's flattened out at all there. I know there's a big open space further down. You know, the lake really opens out further down the course, and it kind of closes up a little bit. So I think she feels a bit more comfortable. And she's kind of there matching speeds with Brazilian without really closing the gap.
At about 30 strokes per minute. And Ipka we can see perhaps with the drone shot out of lane 1 from Hong Kong, China, the 26-year-old.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get too much of a shot of her. The drone rightly will concentrate on the race for first place. And if you are new to the sport of rowing and you're tuning in, this is the Paralympic rowing class, although this event itself is not in the Paralympics. It's the PR2 mixed double scull that is in the Olympics. But this PR2 class is for rowers who have functional use of the trunk movement. That means they're able to use their body to propel the boat. But for whatever reason, you know, because of weakened functional mobility in the lower limbs, they can't use the sliding seat to propel the boat. So the classification goes on, you know, through the season to check that each athlete is in the right para classification. And there is Ipka Yi. She is coming through the 1,000-metre mark, and I think she's probably a long way behind the other leaders. I think she is nearly 500 metres behind the other leaders.
Making her international debut.
She doesn't get much of a body on Ipka Yi, does she? She's kind of, you know, she's almost like a PR1 sculler in that effect. I don't know whether she's like that because of the conditions, or that's the level of her ability. But you compare it with the Brazilian Josiane Lima on the left of your picture, you can see the amount of body she's able to get and labour through the water. Also with Asanova on the right of your screen there, the Ukrainian, able to get a lot of traction on the boat. No sponsons on the side of the boat, as in the PR1 category. So these scullers have better feel in their back and a lower body, glutes, so they can actually get a sense of the balance of the boat, which is difficult for some of the athletes in the PR1 class, which is why they sometimes have those sponsons on.
Yeah, she had Josiane Lima put on Instagram yesterday a shot of her boat. She said her PR2 women's single boat is adjusted and ready to defend our dear Brazil.
Yep, and it looks like, barring accidents, hers will be the first medal of this World Rowing Cup 2. So we're around about the time now that Katie O'Brien came down the tracking. So, you know, conditions are not being helpful. 9:14 is the world's best time. We did see a world's best time go this morning / early afternoon to Great Britain in the lightweight women's double sculls. Nothing like that here. And that's not necessarily because of the quality of the athletes. I think it's more to do with the tricky conditions. It's just slowing the boat down, taking a bit of the runoff as it goes forward. Josiane Lima now has about 20-25 metres to go to the finish line. She's kept Asanova in the sights since that early shipwreck the Ukrainian had. Here we go. First medal of Rowing World Cup 2 goes to Josiane Lima from Brazil, and the silver medal to Anna Asanova from the Ukraine. And I look down the course and I am struggling to see Ipkayi from Hong Kong, China. So we might have to wait a bit for the sculler from Hong Kong, China to cross the line.
Great cheer and a clap from Josiane Lima for competitor Asanova through the line.
You see her wobble as she goes off. It is tricky conditions.
Yeah, and that crosswind you mentioned too, I think especially at the start, and we might see that as the crews start to gain their points in those first few strokes. They'll want to stay absolutely straight, but it can be difficult when the wind's blowing across.
I tell you, if anyone's watching this that raced this morning, they're going to be really pleased they raced this morning and not this afternoon. And they're going to be looking and hoping that the conditions maybe aren't like this tomorrow for the finals of the Olympic class events and the Paralympic class events.
Yeah, the singles that went this morning, the semis, they'll be pleased to have gone then.
So I think we will not see Ipkayi finish the race. She is still out on the course. I can see her now. She's coming through the 500 metres to go mark shortly. But this is the PR2 men's single sculls.